What is going on, everybody? Depraved Slasher here. We are back with another top 10 reaction on Depraved.
I'm Hellcat.
Together we are
HellaDepraved.
I remembered that time.
Yeah, just need 2 in a row.
Huh?
Just need 2 in a row. To remember.
Oh. True. So if you came in earlier, you've seen that we had reacted to the top 10 worst horror movie remakes of all time.
Right.
And I noticed that WatchMojo, around the same time as the worst one came out, put out a best horror movie remakes of all time. Now, what's funny is the worst horror movie remakes of all time has close to 3 to 4 million views.
Right.
The best horror remakes of all time is only like 1 million. I say only, but it's just for in comparison.
People don't care quite as much about what was well done.
As opposed to what they think is shit.
shit. Yeah.
Now, we're going to try and do this one a little differently. We're going to try to hold our comments until the end of a number.
Each segment, yeah.
Because the last video was drawn out for about an hour.
Of course, we were protesting most of the way through, so
True.
that was... But we're going to try. We're going to try. Right.
So...
We'll see.
We'll see. With that being said, we're going to react to this if you guys have already seen it. If not, click the link in the description below. Hop on over to all things. Come back. We say that because we're a commentary, reaction, breakdown channel. Not much being broke down here. But we will pause for any and or all of the above. So with that being said, it is time to slash it up and check it out.
Right.
This is
Get it.
WatchMojo's top 10 best horror movie remakes of all time.
Right. See.
Let's get it. Wow. I like their intro.
Who says you can't mess with the original? Welcome to WatchMojo.com.
You did in
and
the
today,
last one.
That was literally the exact opposite of what you said earlier.
That's what I was... Yeah. We're failing already, by the way.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have numbers yet. We can pause as much as we want.
Okay, so
let's
just let you sit there in your wrongness and be wrong.
Yes.
We're counting down our picks for the top 10 best horror movie remakes. For this list, we've chosen films that showed us that the reinvention of an older horror flick can be just as spine-tingling as the original, while it can also generate its own unique take on the source material.
Everybody, get to the shore! Get to the shore!
We'll be focusing on full remakes of older films, so pseudo-remakes like Evil Dead 2: Dead by Dawn don't qualify.
Okay.
Number 10, Night of the Living Dead.
Okay.
You're afraid, aren't you? You really are afraid of this place.
A practically shot-by-shot color remake of the iconic 1968 indie flick that gave us the modern-day zombie.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Tom Savini's Night of the Living Dead featured much of the same crew from the original,
Coming to get you, Barbara.
and even featured some production work by George A. Romero himself.
Weird, huh?
One big difference was that this undead fest amped up the violence and gore, as opposed to the more subtle approach of the black and white film,
You open the store, you mother. I swear I'll blow this shit.
as both an homage and a strong example of horror in its own right. This 1990 remake took audiences on a bloodbath of zombie carnage with the support and encouragement of its source's creators, and left a trail of terrifying blood-spattered remains in its wake.
Shout out Tony Todd.
Right. I was just going to say, I saw you wanting to pause just to say that. One of the best in
Horror
the game.
actors
Yeah.
of all time.
Yeah. And not spoken about nearly as much as I feel like he needs to be.
Fun fact, I've never seen the remake.
I've seen both. Now, okay.
So, here's the thing. I didn't know they ever did a remake.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen the black and white and color versions of the original.
Yeah.
Never knew they did it. And it's cool that they brought back a lot of the original actors.
All I can think of is that song that's on our horror playlist. They're coming to get you, Barbara. Yeah, sorry. That's on our Spotify playlist if you want to hear it.
Yeah.
But she just said that, and it is true, they amped up the gore, but on the flip side, it's again shot pretty much shot for shot, yeah. And then
in the worst remake video,
was exactly
that was always her complaint.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm like, girl, like, at least sit down with yourself, have a come to Jesus moment when you're making these, and don't base them off of other people's critiques, because you are, like, it just feels like
you're making yourself sound silly.
You're contradicting yourself left and right. So you've got to have your own list of why you're evaluating them this way and stick to it.
Now, I do now want to see the remake because A, I love Tony Todd.
Right. It's actually quite good.
B, I love Tony Todd. And C, more gore.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it actually was not a bad storyline in the first place, especially for someone who is not, like, all that appreciative of zombies.
Well, and it's the original zombie story. Like...
Well, in terms of, like,
movies.
Yeah, zombie kinetics.
Right.
Yeah. So, no, it was actually quite good. Yeah.
Good choice, I think. Got him.
Number 9, I Am Legend.
No. Bad.
Previously adapted to film as the horror classics The Last Man on Earth and The Omega Man.
It's almost dark. They'll be waking up soon.
This early 21st century take on Richard Matheson's novel gave the vampire zombie genre a whole new look.
We may have something here.
After escaping a virus that turned all of humanity into mutated monsters, Dr. Robert Neville finds himself alone in a post-apocalyptic world where he has to fight the undead on a nightly basis.
But I don't have any friends. And I'm not going out there by myself.
With action-packed twists and turns, as well as subtle commentary surrounding our views on both society and monsters alike, the commercially successful I Am Legend and its powerful performance by Will Smith left critics and audiences enthralled and impressed.
What are you doing? The cure is in her blood.
Yes and no.
I struggle with this one because I don't think I Am Legend is a bad movie.
No,
overall.
It's not.
But it's one of those movies that I put right up there with, like, The Forest, where I was into it until the very end, and the very end killed the movie for me. I think the alternate ending would have made the movie perfect, because the alternate ending, he lives.
See, here's my problem. It's not Matheson's book, and I understand
She's going
why.
literary nerd on us, guys,
I understand why they did what they did in I Am Legend with Will Smith and everything, but, like, part of the whole mental state, I guess, of the main character was based around sort of the privilege and everything of the times, in him being white, and he was kind of a little bit of a reprehensible person in terms of his thought process. And I know that wouldn't translate well for people with the cancel culture and everything, but really what it was trying to make a statement on it not being a good thing, and right. That we're all susceptible to, well, being obliterated amongst other things, but, like...
Have you ever seen The Omega Man?
I have not.
I think it's actually more based off of the book.
It probably is, yeah. But I mean, I own the book and I've read it multiple times, and like I said, it's honestly kind of a hard book for me to read because I do not like the main character, and so I am...
rooting against him the entire time?
I am not upset with the ending. We'll just go with that. However, it's a good book.
Right.
Like, it now... I Am Legend with Will Smith in it, like you said, it's not a bad movie. It's just, you know, it almost made more sense for the Omega Man to be named I Am Legend and for the Will Smith version to be the Omega Man. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's one of those that I feel like if you're going to do an adaptation or an interpretation of a work, don't title it exactly the same as what you're pulling from, because it's just, if it's not the same storyline or the same, it just doesn't make sense to me. So
Right.
that one's sort of on the fence for me.
Number 8, Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Bonsoir, Monsieur Benet. How nice to see you.
This remake of the 1956 sci-fi flick of the same name took paranoia to a whole new level. An extraterrestrial race attempts to conquer Earth by cloning residents in a San Francisco neighborhood, turning them into emotionless replicas of their hosts.
Jeffrey is not Jeffrey.
When some of the doomed Earthlings catch on to their plot, it's a battle of wits and minds as they attempt to not only discover who has already been replaced, but also how to stop the impending invasion. While going deeper into themes explored in the original film and offering haunting special effects, this apocalyptic horror remains a potent example of a remake done right.
Was that Leonard Nimoy?
Yeah, but I don't think I've seen it.
I've not seen either of them.
Neither have I. That was meant to be a blanket statement for me. Okay, I will say
I'm very familiar with the idea and the story.
Oh yeah. I've even been in the area where it was filmed, the San Francisco.
I think King wrote a story based on this idea.
It's just one of those things that the concept doesn't do it for me.
Right.
Honestly, I don't feel like aliens would need to come in all sneaky.
No, I'm definitely.
And also, why would they?
So with like, if I'm going for alien stories, I'm definitely looking more towards things like Independence Day.
I'll take Aliens,
War of the
Predator
Worlds, the
over
original,
this.
not the remake.
Right. This is
Close
a little
Encounters.
too, yeah. But
so far, this list is not as impressive. I kind of liked bitching. I see why the other one has 3 million views.
you know, but
and this one's-
here's okay. It might get better, but I just feel like, again, I'm having such problems with her contradictions in terms of ranking.
Right.
You know, so we'll see.
Number 7, The Blob. Here's another sci-fi horror flick that had audiences running from the theater all the way back in 1958, before it was remade decades later.
Hey, watch out, he's got some kind of corrosive shit on his hands.
In The Blob, a jelly-like substance engulfs everything it encounters, gaining enough strength and size along the way, and leaving a town in panic as the residents frantically attempt to defeat its approach. While the original film had the mysterious extraterrestrial substance function as a lumbering ball of goo, this version had the creature invade the body of its victims and gave it the ability to split and attack in multiple locations at once, leaving no place safe from its grasp.
You spread a plague through this place and kill all of you!
Who you gonna call?
Interesting. I didn't know The Blob got a remake.
I mean, I had seen the first. Again, it's that subgenre of sci-fi that it's just not that appealing to me.
Well,
I've seen bits and pieces of it over the years, but
I didn't know The Blob had already had a remake. I heard Rob Zombie was in talks to direct a remake.
Okay.
Which I definitely would have been down for.
Right. I mean, I would have watched that. It's not.
I didn't know there was already a remake that was an option. Like, I've seen the original.
And it was only decades later, I guess. I don't know. We'd have to look that up.
But,
I've seen bits and pieces, you know.
So they're definitely going with more obscure shit that I haven't seen.
See, and that's
really
where
paid attention to.
that was one thing I was going to point out. is a lot of these seem to be...
Here's what makes me mad. If you look at all the remakes so far, most of them have been remakes that, like, it's a really old movie, and then now kind of old movie.
Right.
So, it's not special effects ruined the movie.
Well, they can't say that.
Because it's still practical effects. I hate this idea. I hate practical effects snobs.
Right.
I do.
Right. Now, look, if they get it wrong, they get it very, very wrong. And, like, in terms of the CGI and special effects and so on and so forth. But the same can be said of the practical effects. So, you know, again, it's how it's used, who's using it. Yeah.
Number 6, The Hills Have Eyes.
Ooh.
I'll agree with
This
one.
reimagining of Wes Craven's 1977 film left audiences just as terrified with its tale of mutant sadists living in the New Mexico desert.
Can't miss it. There's an old fence right in front.
After being led into a trap by local townsfolk, a family is terrorized by the gang of murderers in various examples of brutal violence, earning the film an NC-17 rating upon its initial release. Featuring massive amounts of gore and bloodshed, along with the monstrous appearances of the mutants, this remake made us all think twice before accepting help from strangers and taking shortcuts on our next road trip.
Mister, would you play with us?
Come play with us.
And by the way, there is an unrated version of this that's even more fucked up.
Right.
I'm glad this is on the list.
And it took place in New Mexico, which made it a Halloween favorite for who's
Right.
there for the last 20 years.
I'm glad they put this on the list because so many people shit on this remake. A lot of people didn't like the directions they went in. There were even a lot of people that I had seen back when the movie was coming out and in theaters. There were a lot of people that had said they got up in the middle of the movie and left.
Really?
Yes. And reason being is it was hard for them to sit there and watch. And that's what I liked about the movie. So, a lot of people downed this movie because it's not necessarily terrifying or scary.
Right.
Honestly, it fucks with you more morally than it does.
Right. Well, yeah, but again,
Scare
we're
you.
talking about horror and archetypal fear.
Well, and the way I tried to explain it to people, I was like, you got to look at it like this. As horror progresses in society, we're no longer going to be afraid of the things that we used to be afraid of. I mean, you look at what people like our parents grew up saying was scary. The Exorcist.
Right.
I watch The Exorcist and laugh.
Oh, yeah, I just think it's a shit film.
People think those old school horror movies are so terrifying and frightening, and I felt this fear, and for me, I'm like, nah, this shit's funny.
Yeah,
it's not
part
scary.
of it's exposure, part of it's
we kind of numb
look of the
ourselves
film.
to it.
Yeah, we're inured, but part of it's also like the quality of the filming makes a big difference because you're like, oh, I can tell that's. I'm saying that there are multiple factors that go into sort of phasing out of.
Well, and the reason why I'm playing the numbing line too, though, so we also get further into the future where we're at kind of now within the last 5-10 years. We've up to 15 years now at this point, where we've seen Rob Zombie do movies like the Halloween remake that is just over the top gory.
Right.
It's not scary.
Right.
And so if you're gonna scare people, honestly, at the point this movie came out, the next logical step isn't so much like a jump scare fear. You need, to me, making people feel uneasy is kind of
that's
where
what I was
horror
gonna
has
say.
to go.
That has been what it's always been about, though. Like, if you go back and listen to Hitchcock, it's unease. It's what you're uncomfortable with. That's how he built anticipation and just the feeling behind it and got away with jump scares and stuff that actually frightened people using archetypal fears, but on top of it just playing to what makes you uneasy. And horror has always concentrated on those archetypes, but also morals. I mean, you look at those stereotypes of the victims, and the victims and the killers often follow tropes, but they're morally ambiguous people that make you either root one way or another, but you're like, I mean, they use them practically as like, follow the moral path, don't have, premarital sex, do drugs, have, raucous parties, this, that, and the other, or this will happen to type mentality.
And
it's a natural progression is all I'm saying. Like, yeah.
One of my favorite scenes in this movie, and not because I like it, because it's still to this day one of the few scenes I can watch in any movie that legit makes me feel uneasy, except for the entirety of either Human Centipede.
That's for a different reason.
Is the snuggle struggle scene on the bus, or the camper, while Dad's being burned alive.
Right.
On his makeshift cross. Like, to this day, I can watch this movie, and that 10 to 15 minute stretch, I'm still sitting there like, ugh.
Right.
Like, you're just kind of like...
But then again, you think about cult classics. So they've been around for a while. Like, I Spit on Your Grave.
Right.
The entire first 45 minutes of the first one makes me extremely uncomfortable.
But definitely makes the last hour and a half
worth
watching.
But honestly, like, yeah.
You're rooting for
exactly.
You're like, get him!
But honestly, I almost gave up because I was like, is this just gratuitous rape? Is that all?
Snuggle struggle, baby.
Sorry.
Struggle.
But, like... Is that what this is versus an actual horror movie? So again, but that is what horror is supposed to do, is make you uncomfortable. Now, some people, the people that got up and walked out, maybe they're just there for the jump scares and the thrills, and then they're not actually understanding what the true nature of horror flicks is. That's fine. I'm not one of those horror diehards that's like, you gotta love every kind and understand the background and the history. No. Like, if you don't like it, it's not for you, and that's fine. You can have your opinion. But on the other hand, saying it's gratuitous or it doesn't fit or this, that, or the other for something like this, I think is an incorrect assumption. It just wasn't for you. And a lot of these are based on this kind of uncomfortableness. Aren't just based on archetypes, but they're based on things that have close to things that have happened, and that makes it even that much more psychologically twisting. Yeah.
Number 5, Dawn of the Dead. Zack Snyder's remake of the 1978 horror classic had a lot to live up to, but proved to be anything but lazy in its recreation of the film that helped make the zombie genre infamous.
Well, it's tough shit, because this is our place and you can't stay here.
With the shopping mall setting as its
you
link to the source film.
Us.
You did all right this time, Fly Boy. How about it?
Dawn of the Dead offered an all-new cast of zombie bait, a fresh take on the creatures, and subtle nods to its predecessor, all while creating a rich retelling of George A. Romero's original.
Nothing wrong. That dog's just up.
This innovative and well-thought-out flick gave diehard fans the gore and scares they craved, and introduced a new crop of zombie fanatics to a film they couldn't wait to sink their teeth into.
All right.
Did you just jump a minute ago?
No,
I thought I saw okay. I was like, did it not? Okay.
This is just me being 100% honest. I don't like either.
Yep.
Dawn of the Dead. I get the original is a classic by all stretch of the all stretch of the reasoning and rules of what a classic can be. I get it.
Right.
But I don't like zombie movies generally.
Right.
There have been a couple.
Right.
Like the original Night of the Living Dead.
Night of the Living Dead is different, yeah.
I enjoy The Walking Dead as a TV show. And then that's where my I'm okay with zombies ends. Is those two things. I'm
just not like... So, but that semi-scene is also something that happens in Resident Evil. You know, so it's not like... She was like, and new stuff, and I'm like sitting here like, that's almost an exact shot that happens. And again, that's a zombie based movie, video game based, whatever you want to call it, which I just think is great action B flick, you know.
But no, I'm not a big fan of
you know,
zombies in media.
Right.
I definitely think we got way oversaturated with it within the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, for a while there, you had, like, Walking Dead was on, World War Z was, not World War Z, what was the other Z something? Z Nation, I think, was the other zombie show that was on.
But World War Z was a movie.
Right, they had the World War Z movie. Well, there are tons of movies. And then they had that other TV show about that chick that was a zombie that could eat
iZombie.
people's... She could eat people's brains and help solve crimes that way or whatever.
Right.
She did. I don't know. I didn't watch it. Just a lot of zombie.
There's just a lot. I mean, again,
and
it's
video games, everything had a zombie mode.
It's a front, yeah.
And I don't get the love for zombies.
Right. Well,
I would love to live in a world of them so I could crack most of you guys on this head with a bat, but
from time to time. Sure.
After you died the first time, of course. But
you're nice. You're waiting. All right. What's the next one?
Number 4. Let Me In.
Are you a little girl? Huh? Are you scared?
This tale of a bullied...
We just watched this.
I know.
That's why I'm like... Yay.
And I love Let Me In.
I've never seen the original, though. I'll admit.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But I love this one.
Right,
so.
But the remake is fantastic.
Preteen and his supernatural neighbor began production before the original film it was based on was even released. An American version of the Swedish film Let the Right One In. This remake traded its Stockholm setting for a small New Mexico town in an attempt to make the source material appeal to a wider audience.
Just so you know, I can't be your friend.
That's the girl from
You're
Carrie.
stopping. You're not supposed to.
Sorry, I was pausing because it's the girl from Carrie.
I know, but it was a fantastic movie. I didn't realize it took place in New Mexico.
Right.
Interesting.
While the original still holds up, Let Me In preserved its tale of friendship, love, and violence without neglecting the horror and emotional connections between the characters that made Let the Right One In so rich and compelling.
You have to invite me in.
It was also widely praised by critics.
Oh, and I have to go away.
Number 3, The Ring.
I'm actually glad The Ring's on here too. So, Let Me In, I'm glad is on this list again. I did not know
there was an original.
It was a remake.
Right. I did know. I just haven't seen it. I knew there was a Swedish original.
One of the things I loved about Let Me In was the first time I had watched it, which I've only seen it twice now.
Right.
The first time I watched it, I want to say I got bored at a point and stopped paying attention. So, like, I didn't remember a lot of it.
When we watched it just recently?
No. The first time I watched it.
Okay.
When we watched it recently, I don't know what the setting was that made it feel different or what, but I was actually kind of drawn in the beginning, and the moment you realize she's there was a specific moment when she was like, you have to let me in. I think that was the scene. And I went...
Vampire.
She's a fucking vampire!
Right.
And I don't know why the entire movie I wasn't putting 2 and 2 together. Because
the first time, yeah.
The moment it dawned on me, I was like, this whole movie makes sense now.
See, I remember you saying that while we were watching it, and I was like, you didn't know that? Like, there was something that gave it away to me. Then again, you also tend to avoid a lot of vampire stuff, and I don't watch Twilight. I will not watch Twilight.
If more vampire movies were done like that...
I like vampire lore.
I would love them. I like lore.
Yeah.
But that's where my problem with vampire movies usually stems.
They don't normally follow
They usually look at the lore and go,
yeah, no,
nah.
That doesn't apply to this movie. But, yeah, so I did. I did put it together way earlier.
And that's another reason I think I did like Let Me In so much, is they stuck very closely to the lore of the vampire.
Right.
As opposed to being like, we'll take this and this and this, and everything else.
And we'll make them sparkle. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
What's y'all's favorite vampire movie?
If you are going to put Twilight, You can get the hell off my channel.
It's actually John Carpenter's Vampires.
I'd kind of have to think about it. There's a lot of vampire movies that I actually...
My number 1 is probably John Carpenter's Vampires. My number 2 is probably Interview with a Vampire.
Interview with a Vampire is really good, but again, it's not... We're talking vampire movies, not horror movies, guys, because that's not a horror movie.
And then my number 3 vampire movie is probably Let Me In. And then number 4 would be Lost Boys, and then everything else can go to hell.
30 Days of Night, if you haven't
Never
seen
seen
that,
it.
is really good.
I heard vampires and stayed away.
No, again, it follows very close to the lore that should be followed. Yeah, it's very good. I actually have the graphic novels too.
Yeah.
They're, a scourge. They're not. There's no redeemable factors.
Technically, I could throw the Blades in there, but I consider the Blades more of a comic book movie than a vampire.
But again,
movie.
like I said, Interview with a Vampire. While it's a vampire movie, it's not a horror movie.
Right.
And she does follow the trope of romantic love with vampires, which is not part of the lore because they'd be dead, and therefore Van Helsing actually does a decent portrayal of...
Yeah, but I don't consider that necessarily a vampire movie.
It's not. It's a supernatural.
It's just got vampire in it.
Yeah, so, I mean, then you start getting...
Into semantics.
Yeah.
Alright, I love this movie.
Both. The original and the...
All 3 of them.
All 3 of them.
Well, 4. Okay, so here's the thing. I love The Ring as a series.
Right.
American Ring. I do enjoy the first Ringu. I don't think I've seen any of them after that.
Okay. I've only seen the first Ringu and I think the first 2.
Yeah, Rings, which is the 3rd one, was actually pretty cool.
I don't think I've seen that one. No.
Ring.
I hear they're remaking this, actually.
This chilling adaptation of the Japanese film of the same name made audiences everywhere want to look away from their television screens because of a vengeful spirit trapped on a morbid videotape that promises death within 1 week to all who view it.
7 days.
While many are skeptical at first, the creep factor goes up whenever one of the marked victims sees one of the videotaped images in their daily lives, leading up to their demise.
Hey, you gotta... Yeah.
The Ring proved that horror can translate beyond cultures, languages, and different sets of media, and that no one is safe from the grasp of death.
It won't stop.
Making Western moviegoers everywhere tremble in their seats.
It's a good place to pause.
It is.
Look into her eye. Love The Ring. Like I was saying earlier. I feel like the American adaptation is about as close as you're going to get to an American adaptation of a Japanese movie.
While still sticking as closely to it as possible.
Other than maybe The Grudge. The Grudge was very similar to Ju-On as well. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised to see The Grudge be the next one.
If that's not on here, yeah.
But then I could also, I don't know, it might fall in that middle range too, though. Of like,
I don't know. We'll have to see.
But I also like Sarah Michelle Gellar. So anyway, but no, so I'm glad this did make the list, but this is another one of those where I would not have had this on my list because I considered it an adaptation and not a remake.
Right. Again, yeah, it's semantics because they're coming out at relatively the same time, just for different audiences.
Right. That's where Let Me In also would have fallen. Would have been.
No, I think that one was a bit more of a remake. So I don't know.
Well, no, because they were working on it before the first one came out.
That's right. That's what they said. Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't necessarily, like I said, I don't personally consider a remake. I'm glad it's on the list because I love the movie.
Right.
And
this
in all
too. Yeah.
technicality, it is a remake. I get it, but
right in that it is not the original.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Number 2, The Thing.
Gentlemen, do you realize what we've found?
This remake of the 1951 horror sci-fi film The Thing from Another World.
My God, what the hell happened here?
follows even more closely the John W. Campbell Jr. novella Who Goes There, upon which they're both based.
5 minutes is enough to put a man over down here.
It tells the story of a group of scientists in Antarctica that encounters a shape-shifting alien that can assume the identity of anyone it meets.
He knows what he's doing.
Filled with chilling suspense and horrific special effects, The Thing consistently leaves you on the edge of your seat, wondering which character to trust.
And watch him close, do you hear me?
And who will reveal themselves as the alien next. Injected with just enough jump scares and mystery to keep you both watching and squirming. John Carpenter's take also outshines the campy special effects of the original.
Clear!
Well, that was fun.
So, I am about to say something that is going to get my horror movie fan card taken away from me. And that is, I've never seen the original or the remake.
Of The Thing?
Of The Thing. And I say that because it's widely regarded as one of the best horror movies of all times amongst majority horror fans.
All right.
But I have never seen either. And I think the reason being, I don't do sci-fi horror.
Again, I was just going to say, well, then, they can take the sci-fi horror card away from us. Because honestly, like I said in several of the others, that's like the Body Snatchers. It's just not appealing to me, I guess, as a storyline.
She will dip a little more into sci-fi horror than I will.
Right.
In that she likes the Alien movie, and I don't.
I like all of them. I like all of the Alien movies.
I like AVP.
I like Predators. I like, but again, I view those as more action movies almost. Whereas these I would have put in the crappy comedy, but they are sci-fi horror, whereas, and I guess the Alien ones technically are sci-fi horror. Again, I feel like they cross a lot of genres the way that all of these are written, and sci-fi, I don't know. I tend to
go away, Skeeter.
Yeah.
Honorable mentions.
Before we reveal our number one pick, here are some honorable mentions.
Michael!
I don't even want to know what your number one is now. I will say, hands down, Halloween 2007 is my favorite horror movie remake of all time. Because it did the one thing that I didn't think it could do. And that's take a horror movie franchise I literally gave no fucks about.
And made it one that you...
And made me go, I like Michael Myers.
Right.
I was a huge Freddy fan growing up.
Right.
Michael and Jason did not interest me. Now, there were at least a couple of Friday the 13th movies I did like before the remake came out. But I'm also one of the rare people. Halloween is my favorite Halloween movie, the remake. Halloween 3 is my second favorite, and people absolutely despise Halloween 3.
See, and I don't despise Halloween 3, but it's certainly not up there. It's definitely not. And of course,
the jingle is what gets it for me.
Part of that is for me. It's just not up there. I've always liked Freddy, Jason, and Michael, to the point. Except for, here's the thing, is so Jason and Michael both have sort of the same trope going for them, the stereotype. So I tend to mix up their names fairly frequently. And that is my fault. That's also my memory. But I really, really like 2007.
And I love the backstory. Backstory.
Again, and here's the other thing about it, is it made me give a shit about him. In terms of, his childhood, his upbringing, how he descended to this. I mean, do I want him? I always want the villain to win. That's a bad way to go that way.
Well,
but
and I love that the remake was over the top bloody.
Yeah.
Which I felt like enhanced the whole Michael Myers things for me, because it sucks knowing he's probably this crazy fucking person, And you mean to tell me he just stabs everyone once and then walks away?
He is a classic slasher.
Right.
It is supposed to be bloody and gory, and yeah, most victims, like, there are very few that go down with one stab wound, even just in real life. So
right.
Yeah, like, it made sense. Plus, it's a slasher. Come on now.
Right. Now I don't even want to know what your number one is. I guess we're going to wrap up the... No, I'm kidding.
Nothing's really happened yet.
Never
We
seen
could
it.
just say George's leg broke on the boat.
Thank God it's not that one.
What do you want?
I would have actually put My Bloody Valentine 3D on the list
I
of
haven't
probably
seen it.
10 best remakes. Well, it depends on how you're ranking your remakes. If I'm talking about originals,
Right.
to remake. Okay, so like the original My Bloody Valentine, I didn't think was good.
Right.
At all.
Right.
While this wasn't great, it probably would have made like my number 10.
See, now I've missed a lot of the 3Ds specifically because I get...
Well, I have the 2D version of this.
I'm just saying, like, when they come out and they are, like, 3D, and that's what their sort of claim to fame is, at least at the time, the draw, I get so motion sick, guys. I can't watch 3D, so I just tend to avoid them, you know.
I took somebody on a date to see this, and I don't remember who it was. But we ended up going to the 2D version because I didn't want to do the 3D glasses because this was still when they were doing the red and blues.
The blue glasses, yeah.
And I was like, nah.
Yeah.
Not for a whole movie.
Number 1, The Fly.
Really? It's time for champagne.
That's their number 1?
Director David Cronenberg is famous for his gory body horror special effects, and this film is no exception.
No, you're missing the point.
On the verge of creating a successful teleport device, scientist Seth Brundle experiments with transporting himself. However, a fly has come along for the ride.
That's what it is.
No, really, what is it?
This results in him not only combining his DNA with the fly's,
The computer got confused. There weren't supposed to be two separate genetic patterns.
but also to suffer a slow descent into madness as his body begins to change form into a grotesque and monstrous creature. The slow and heartbreaking deterioration of both mind and flesh make this Jekyll and Hyde type tale a terrifying horror remake you don't want to miss. Do you agree with our list?
I'm going insane here.
Which horror remakes keep you up at night?
Okay, well, I love Jeff and Gina in that, and it is sort of that Jekyll and Hyde storyline. I would not have put that as number 1.
I don't know if I'd have put it as number 1.
No, I'm not saying that it shouldn't be on this list. I'm just saying I wouldn't have put it as number 1.
I've never seen the original.
Oh. See, now, here's my thing. Yeah, the digestive fluids and him shedding his... honestly, for me, it was always more of just, like, a gross out. And, again, I feel like that has its place in horror movies. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. It's not my thing, because it's definitely more of the gross out. It is supposed to be the whole Jekyll and Hyde descent into madness, yada yada, watching this disintegration of a brilliant mind into this. Jeff and Gina are amazing. Like, Gina is one of my favorite actresses. But I just... The ick factor... she's in so many great things. Yeah.
The ick factor doesn't bother me at all. You guys seen me cringe?
Oh, yeah, that was...
Fingernails. I don't do fingernails.
I don't necessarily cringe. I just get bored. Like, I get underwhelmed with the rest of it because there's so much ick factor that while I could really get into the human psychology part of it, like, I'm just like, really? Like, was that part necessary? Like, I'm overly critical. There you go.
So...
He's got a fingers thing, though.
You have a fingernail thing. Fingernails No, fingers themselves can be ripped off.
It's the
all
fingernails,
day.
yeah.
It is literally just the fingernails.
Yeah.
I don't know what caused it. I personally blame Stir of Echoes, but I'm pretty sure it probably stemmed somewhere before even that.
Right.
But
and eyeballs, like specifically the melting of,
or clipping of.
Well, that's fun
the
too.
Thing.
Makes watching Hostel fun for me.
Lies. What makes watching Hostel fun is watching that group of girls get hit by a car.
Well, yeah, that was.
Look. Anyways.
Yeah.
No, so in terms of, obviously we don't agree, even in the slightest, with their lists.
Right.
Either of them that we've watched today. Another remake I would have had in my top 10 would have been 2001 Maniacs.
Yeah, that was actually really well done.
And
look, if they're going to be
I actually
talking
like the original,
about
2000
more
Maniacs.
obscure films here, not like and I'm talking obviously franchise versus horror movie, like, might be a side note. I agree with you. The original, but they're two different things, but they're both really good, and the remake was very well done.
Right. But no, so one of the things I'm wanting to do on our horror channel.
They didn't have Chucky on either.
Chucky's remake was 2 years ago. These are 6
Oh,
videos.
that's right. That's
2-3
right.
years
Okay.
ago.
I forgot the time gap.
Because Chucky. Now here's the thing.
Probably would have made their worst.
It would have made their worst. It would have been in my honorable mentions for best.
Right.
I did not dislike Chucky as much as a lot of other people did because there
Right.
were things about it I absolutely loved.
Right.
Obviously, I hate that he's a robot.
Pros and cons again, yeah.
But they did so many other things right in that, like, I loved the fight scene in the end where it was him and a group of his friends trying to save his mom.
Right. Right.
Which I thought was really... Anyways, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
One of the things I would like to do with our horror channel, and I don't necessarily think it would be something we would do every month, but like every other month or every 3 months, I would like to have a remake week where we would watch the original, watch the remake, and then do like 5 videos that come out that week comparing them. Okay. So we would compare the death scenes between the two. It would be like one video. We would compare acting or something like that and just kind of go in depth and discuss remakes with the originals.
All right. Do versus.
Right.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the week, do like a wrap-up video.
Just in conclusion.
And discuss what we feel is the better movie.
Okay.
Because I always... One of the things I've noticed, at least for me, and I know this is going to be untrue for a lot of people, a whole lot of people, I typically feel like remakes are better than the original movie they're based on. I'm not saying they're better than the series.
Right.
Or anything like that.
Right. Or every single one is. Yeah.
Typically, I enjoy remakes more than the originals because one of the things I love that they had been doing with remakes was adding backstory.
Right.
I don't find Michael being this supernatural killer you know nothing about to be interesting. Honestly, it's kind of boring.
Right.
I don't find Jason being...
I want the human psychology. And again, it's that Jekyll and Hyde descent into madness, like everything we've been talking about that makes some of those supernatural killers almost scarier.
Right. Like a prime example, Friday the 13th, a lot of people shit on that movie because, like, one of the, like, just a small example with that movie. I look at the original Friday the 13th and Jason will disappear and then reappear.
Right.
Behind a tree, closer.
Right.
And it's like, well, how did he get there? And they go through and take the time to explain it in the remake.
Right.
At least their version of it. And then people are like, well, that takes the supernatural element away. Good!
Right. Well, he's not supposed... I mean, other than surviving death.
over and over and
over
again.
and over. He's not supposed to be entirely a supernatural being. Plus, they didn't take a huge chunk of time to explain it either. They did it in a great way, just showing.
It was an active.
Yeah, like
thing.
there was a bell ringing. You see, you know, so it's like.
But I feel like it added more to the movie for me. Or
it
like,
gave more depth to him too, honestly.
And I loved that he ran. It wasn't always a steady walk to follow someone and then just appearing there. Like,
honestly,
he
that's
chased him.
more of a.
He hunted
That
him.
should be more of a Michael thing. He was the slow and steady.
Right.
Wins the race.
There was something else I was going to talk about with the Michael remake as well, and I cannot remember what it was. One of the things I liked about
we can
it
get
so
to
much.
it when we
I
review
know.
them, though. Like if you can't remember it right now.
Oh, another reason I dislike... one of the reasons, and I honestly, it irritates me even to this day. Now, understand this, when I was mentioning the whole Halloween thing earlier, I've definitely grown a much more appreciation for the series as I've gotten older and I've watched them and things like that. But one of the things I still to this day don't like with that series specifically is like you go I think it was like 1 through 4 or 1 through 5 and then they retcon.
Right.
And they're like, okay, so this is where this takes place after 2.
Yeah.
But then they go so far into that, and then all of a sudden it was
They're like, nope, didn't like that either.
The Halloween that came out 2 years ago was like, okay, this is what actually happens after 2 or after 1. Actually, they're like 2 on didn't happen.
Hated it.
This is where we're at.
Hated it.
And it's like, no,
I'd rather keep a story.
I would have rather Rob Zombie not do something absolutely dumb with Halloween 2. And just kept that series going as opposed to retconning the original over and over again.
Yeah, I agree. Either way, yeah.
And I still, to this day, the most irritating ending to beginning I have still to this day seen. I don't remember which Halloween movie it was, but it ends with Michael getting his head chopped off. And then the movie picks up the next movie showing that wasn't Michael. It was actually the EMS guy.
Right.
And I'm like, really? I almost feel like...
You're like, do you think we're suckers?
I almost feel like...
Obviously you do.
That was just an excuse to continue the series instead of just ending it.
Right.
But I don't know.
I mean, like, yeah. We'll have to see some more lists because there have been some, like, 13 Ghosts.
It's shit on a lot, and I love it.
It's shit on a lot. Fantastic movie. And isn't it a remake?
I believe so, yes.
Why is that not on this list?
Nobody except for
I don't
us
fucking care.
would put it on best.
And that is not true. Because there's so many people that I have found out there that have a true appreciation for it that I did not know existed outside of my best friend and I until you came on the scene. And now there is a world out there. And it's like, no. Fucking fantastic. The entire thing. Like, look at the house they built. All the shit they put into the like, hello?
I still want a Netflix series rated R
of each ghost.
And just call it like 13.
Right. So people don't know exactly what it is from the get-go.
Right.
Except for us that are in the know. That if you know, you know.
And it would be 14 episodes long. And literally the first 13 episodes would be explaining how people became ghosts.
Well, it would just be... You would have to call them, like... What? Single one-offs? Because it's just following this person until they died. Like, so... Because it would be the backstory of each person... Right. And sort of until they became.
You can honestly probably do it in less movies though, because if I remember correctly, like the baby and the mom are 2 ghosts, but
they
die at the same time.
And you'd have to make the last one his wife.
You'd also be able to explain his wife and him in the same movie.
Yeah.
So you could probably do it in like a 10-episode thing.
Right.
But then I would also love for like the end of each episode to end with that ghost being captured.
Right.
Which obviously after the first movie you would know.
You would know.
If you know, you know.
But then, no, maybe 12, because then you've got his uncle Silas. So, like, his whole story would be absolutely fascinating, because he somehow got obsessed with this stuff, became the collector, occultist, and he is a ghost at the end. What? What are you looking at?
Oh, just keep talking. You're good.
I was done. But that would end up being 12.
That's why that wasn't on here.
Why?
The first It probably would have been on here.
Oh.
In terms of best.
But the
But second, it came out 2017.
Yeah, okay. That's also... Okay.
But yeah, so those are some plans for our horror channel when we get around to it.
Correct.
I'm almost about ready to just be like, we're just not going to have intros. Because
they also didn't have the Shinings on here. Now, granted, the miniseries is a miniseries, not a...
Well, okay, so you had The Shining, which was... There's only been one Shining movie.
Right, like I said, it's a miniseries.
And the miniseries also just came out like 2 years ago. I believe.
No.
Maybe... There was an actual talks of... Well, I guess the actual series was 97.
Yeah, well...
So I guess it just kind of falls in that it just didn't matter to be either in the best or the worst list.
Right. Well, and like I said, it is a miniseries, but the reason it was done as a miniseries was to follow the book more accurately, and they felt it would be too long to be a movie. Plus, Kubrick also had some of the rights at that point, so...
Right.
It was sort of a thing. But yeah, like... Again, there you go.
But yeah, so there's our opinions, popular or unpopular as they may be. Mostly
right.
Unpopular.
I don't think they're for unvalid reasons, though, especially, again,
no, I hated
with
her
the contradiction.
ranking.
Yeah, exactly. So
excuses.
Yeah.
In either way. Well, this one wasn't near as bad as the worst, though. The worst was extremely contradictory all the time.
The whole way through.
This one just had a couple moments of like, really?
Right. And they are sort of more obscure remakes.
Right.
So.
But all right, guys.
Yeah, there you go.
We love y'all. Thank y'all for watching. Cannot wait to see you Depraved people later. Peace. Still about an hour long.
Mm-hmm.